What's going on, everyone? Jonathan here with the Aymin Audio Experience, and we're in for a special treat today. We came here to the Union Co-work in San Marcos. It's their newest location to interview CEO Jamie Miller, but we had a special surprise, a surprise guest for you all. So we had Rebecca Jones, she's the mayor of San Marcos, stop by, and we got to hear an incredible story about how she grew a company from zero to $100 million. Absolutely incredible. Some insights into her life and where she is now with the local politics. So really excited to bring you that today. Let's go ahead and get on into the interview. One, two. Welcome everyone to the Aymin Audio Experience. This is Jonathan, I'm your host, and we are joined today by two very special guests, and I'm really excited about introducing both of them. Jamie and Rebecca, thank you so much for being here. Jamie is the CEO of Union Co-work and a number of different things. We're going to get into his story a little bit. Rebecca, mayor of San Marcos, and I am so thrilled to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
And honestly, I mean, I should be thanking you for having us because you're hosting us here in one of your, is this the newest?
Yep.
Newest Union Co-work location. So This is really special. We're in the podcast room for anyone who is not watching this on YouTube. We are in a very cool podcast room specifically set up so that the people who work in these co-working spaces can use and take advantage of the podcasting setup. And they've done such an incredible job providing those amenities. And so we're really excited to be here.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for hosting.
I'm psyched to have you here. Actually, this is our first podcast out of the podcast room.
All right, so I'm really excited about that Virgin podcast room where you're breaking it in.
But wait, there's more. It's the first co-working spaces in San Marcos, so we're excited to have you.
So
How
we're
you
like
doing?
first on. I like it. So let's ping pong back and forth and talk. Tell me a little bit about. You mentioned in the beginning. You watched a lot of TV shows that were based around California. Where did you grow up? Where's Jamie?
Yeah, I was born in Alaska, so I'm American. So just so you guys don't kick me out of here or try to, I'm American.
We would never.
No, I'm kidding. Raised in Canada though, and then went to school in the States, and I've been here ever since.
Amazing. And then Rebecca, how about you?
I've been here my whole life. So I moved to San Diego when I was about 4 months old, grew up in East County, El Cajon and Ramona, and graduated from Valhalla High School back probably when you were born in 1985. So I've been around a long time. I moved to San Marcos in 87, and I was a real estate agent, and somehow I got chosen to be in government, which is crazy to me.
Did you have a background in politics, or was your degree in political science? I mean, what did you?
Nope, none of the above. So it happened that I didn't like something that the city was doing in my neighborhood, and I fought that, and then I went, oh gosh, this is very negative. Then there was a second Walmart in the city, and then a concrete batch plant that would be near my home, and I went, wait a minute, this is really, I don't care for the leadership that's happening right now. Then I had two council members at the time, Pia Harris-Siebert and then Hal Martin. They were both saying, Rebecca, you should run for political office, and I thought, that's not me. No way is that happening. But here I am. And so I've been elected 4 times, 3 times as council member, and then I just was elected as mayor in December.
Wow.
Or November, actually.
So the second Walmart?
Yeah, there was a second Walmart. And the reason that I didn't agree with it is, and at the time, interestingly enough, Walmart was one of our customers because my ex-husband and I owned a furniture marketing business, and they were one of our customers. However, it wasn't the right place. It wasn't the right location, and it was over on the other side of town off of Rancho Santa Fe Road in the sort of La Costa Meadows area. There are now condominiums there. But at the time, I just thought that doesn't make sense, and we already had a Walmart.
Yeah, it's interesting because
Yeah.
my perception of San Marcos before I actually got here was that it was just full of big box retail and a freeway and Old Town, like Restaurant Row.
Yeah.
So my interest in coming to San Marcos was like negative. And so when I met the Levitts, And
Negative?
Well, no. It was purely freeway translation, right?
And when was that? Because this was before. I mean, they've done so much with the college.
So like a year, up until a year and a half ago, up until I got introduced to the developers of this project, they walked me around, and I got to know the town, in a much more in-depth way than a freeway drive. So, anyways, it's much more than that, and it's ironic that you defended against another Walmart, and here we are, Union Co-work, because we're neighborhood centric, right? We're walkable, bikeable. There's nothing walkable, bikeable about a big box retail town,
So
right?
true.
So, anyways, I wanted to throw my 2 cents in there because it makes sense.
Well, when I first moved here in '87, it was a very different city. So I think we were about 60,000 or so. We didn't have the big boxes, to be honest. Back then, where Walmart sits today, there was Edwards Theater, which is now over on San Marcos Boulevard. But we really haven't ever had a defined downtown, which is one of the things I always thought, gosh, I think so many things are great about San Marcos, but there's no downtown. And so how do you create that? And so in 2009, or actually it was 2007, I was on the Creek Task Force before I joined the council in 2007. And I was originally appointed. So I was appointed for about a year and a half, a little less than 2 years. And then I was elected in 2008. But when I joined the council in January of 2007, I had served on the Creek District Task Force. So we came up with this big plan, and it was really all about walkability, housing, and businesses, and all of it really mixed together, retail. Cool. But it never has been built yet. And so in 2000, I believe it was 2009, we approved University District, which is now North City. It's so amazing to see it actually happening now. And the vision that had started to actually see it come to fruition. And I would say that probably the 2 biggest obstacles with getting these 2 areas off the ground has really been getting having a developer that will bring the vision together with purchasing all the land. That's a big project. And so, Gary Levitt and his partners have gotten together. They've done a lot of acquiring the land. There's still a few more parcels that they need to, but really creating that walkability, bringing the housing. And, a lot of this retail sat vacant for a very long time because North County isn't really ready for that. You go downtown, it happens all the time. North County is a little bit different. We have about a third of the population of the county, but we're very different. And so if you look at just kind of how it's evolved, it's been a little different as far as, the pace. Something happens in San Diego a little bit quicker just because, you can get the investment. So it's been more difficult, I think, to get the investment. But now I think North City is really going to be the defined downtown of San Marcos, and bringing in the university because it's just adjacent to us, and now that there's a connection with a pedestrian bridge that's happening, it's pretty exciting. I can't, being on the council 12 years and really seeing all of these things come to fruition, it's an exciting time, and having new different things that we've never had, having our first co-working spaces, and really having that walkable area is great. And I happen to live about 1.5 miles away, so.
Oh my gosh. So it's the definition of what they're trying to do. Something that I like a lot about what you said, and I think something that everyone can pick up from what you said, is that you found something that you didn't like about what was happening, and you decided to make a change. And that is kind of something that was the catalyst that set you on this whole journey. But so many people are so content to just complain about it, or just say, those people over in city council, they don't know what they're doing, and they're just going to complain to their neighbor, or they're going to complain over dinner, to their spouse or whatever, but they aren't going to actually take that next step of taking action. Yeah. And here you are now, you're so much further down the line in a place where, you just said you totally wouldn't have thought you would have been.
Just like starting a business.
Absolutely.
It is, yeah.
Your background developing business probably relates. Yeah, relates.
Well, let me tell you a little bit about that. It's actually a funny story. So I had a son. I had a 1-year-old, and my ex-husband came home one day, and I said, "What are you doing home in the middle of the day?" He said, "Well, my boss said I could either take a 50% pay cut or I could resign." And so I decided to resign. I went, "What? What wasn't this like a discussion?" Yeah. So he said, "Well, we're going to start our own business. It's going to be a furniture sales and marketing company for furniture." And I went, "Well, honey, I've done sales. I mean, it was new home sales." And I said, "But you've never sold anything." And he said, "Oh, we can do this together." And he goes, "Yeah, you're going to do all the computer work." And I went, "Oh, I am. Well, I don't even know how to work a computer," because this was 1997. And so I taught myself to work the computer. That was interesting. Excel even. And so I was cubing trucks and making all these price sheets for all these different
Cubing trucks?
cubing trucks, figuring out how many pieces of furniture will fit on a truck.
Cool.
Oh yeah, so I had to design that. That was pretty interesting in Excel, and so we really started it off the ground. We started it, and it was based mostly on consumer electronic stores. So fast forward,
Consumer electronics, like Best Buy or
Best
Fry's
Buy,
or something like that.
Walmart,
Okay.
Costco. So a lot of those stores, BrandSmart USA used to be one of our, and H.H. Gregg and P.C. Richard, all back east. And so we never actually saw the furniture directly shipped to our customers. We started out originally in Mexico with a company out of Mexico, and then we ended up with Wayland Furniture here in San Diego, but they import everything from China now.
Original drop shipping, right?
Exactly.
Kind of like that same model.
Yeah, exactly. But no one wants to buy a TV stand for, $300. They want to spend $99. And so really being able to meet that price point, you had to move to China. So that's what we did. There were times I remember when we had first moved to San Marcos, and then we now had a daughter, so our kids are about 4 years apart, where I was thinking, okay, we had taken so much money out on the house. My God, if we don't start making money, we're gonna have trouble, right? And so we started slowly but surely doing better. It took about 10 years. And, there were times where, seriously, it was pretty scary. And we, at BrandSmart USA, which is out of Florida, we actually owned all of the furniture. So, the hurricanes would come and we'd be going, "Oh God, please don't let our furniture be wrecked." I mean, there was insurance, but it would still just be a headache.
Scary too. Yeah, absolutely.
We had about $100,000 a year of output where we were holding the inventory. That's a lot of money when you are just starting out like that. So,
and then the warehousing for all of it and all the costs associated. Wow.
Yeah. So when we paid off our second on our home, because we finally started making money, that was pretty exciting. So we grew it into about $100 million a year in sales.
Wow.
From nothing.
Wow. Yeah. That is incredible.
Well, and what most people don't really understand is there was a lot of pure sacrifice. And, with 2 little kids, it was pretty hard. My husband at the time, he was gone about 6 months out of the year, not consecutively, but that's a lot. 2 kids, running the business from home, and being there by yourself for 6 months of the year. So I really, people that are in the military really appreciate their families, because I know what a sacrifice that honestly is.
For 6 months, he was out doing business around the planet.
Yes, yes, all over. So it was pretty tough.
Wow.
But tenacity, not giving up, and sacrifice. I think that's really what builds business, and it's really translated into I appreciate our businesses. I think that is one of the things that probably is pretty unique about an elected official, is that everyone says they care about the businesses, but I go out there and I try to help our businesses.
You've had that firsthand experience.
Exactly,
Absolutely.
because I understand that.
It's interesting too. I think I just read Ross Perot just died, I think. And he, his obituary, it mentioned, or the headline actually was him talking about, 90% of the businesses that he comes across are people that have started business who quit too early, that they're just about there. And I don't know how he figured that out, but it's about tenacity and not giving up. and then I'm thinking to myself, well, at a certain point, you also have to have the capability to say, this is not working, right? So it's a constant battle for me in my current business, which is, okay, like, we're doing great at this, we're not doing great at that. When do you give up on that? Or how do you turn the levels up here or there? Do we give up on this part? Do we, and that's...
It's a shift. Wouldn't you call it a shift?
Yeah, shifting.
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
instead of giving up, you shift.
We did that. We were actually
exhausting.
selling wall units in the beginning, and then the market started shifting. Now it's all TV stands. And then, so you have to evolve. I mean, definitely, you can't just say,
Say
okay.
that again? What, it went from what?
So it went from all those big wall systems, and then people didn't want that anymore. And, another thing that we also sell now, too, is fireplaces. The little electric fireplaces that you put on a blank
absolutely.
wall. Because you have to evolve. You have to shift when there are shifts in the market. So for you,
Podcast
coffee.
room.
You decided you don't want to do coffee anymore. I mean,
Oh, right.
there are
Oh,
all
right.
all these parts of your business where you say, not necessarily go, okay, I'm going to throw in the towel, but how are you going to shift and make sure that you're responding to market, but also what's best for you and really where you can do the best in your efforts, right?
Yeah.
If it's not your passion, you shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Rebecca, take us back, because I'm interested, I think we tend to gloss over, we started from 0 and then we took it to 100 million. And it's like, oh my gosh, and there's the shock factor and how'd you do it? And then you say tenacity and there are these terms. But go really micro. Take us down kind of to the dirt of what it would look like. You're a year in business. So, at this point, do you have some kind of proof of concept? Like, think of someone, because a lot of our audience, they may either just be out of college, they might still be in college, they're looking for what they want to do. Maybe the dream of theirs would be to own their own business or start something, and they want to have that similar success story, 10, 20 years down the road, but they have no idea where to start, and they might get a year in, and it is about pivoting, like you said, and it is about understanding, where to go. What does it look like for you in business at that time, about a year in, 2 years in? Are you still figuring out, do we even want to do this company? Or are you finally starting to see a little bit of traction and saying, this is really our passion, this is what we're called to do? Where are you at that point?
Oh, well, the first couple of years were really tough. So let's see, about a year into it, we decided that we were thinking about moving back to San Diego. We had actually moved the only time I ever lived out of San Diego for 2 years was we were living up in Corona. And because when he had taken that job, the one that he got laid off from, it was up in Chino. And so about a year in, we thought, well, let's move back to San Diego. So we were planning on that. And then he had a medical issue, and he was we were getting ready to go to the Consumer Electronics Show, all gearing up for that, which is a big deal because that was really our debut at that. We had a space and everything, which is very expensive. We were selling furniture for Oak Furniture West at the time out of Mexico. They're down actually in Otay, but their furniture's all made down there.
And for some context really quick, how did you start it as far as funding goes? Did you have some money that you had saved up?
Yes.
Did you?
Yes, we started it with our own money. So, and then, but it was a marketing company. So we didn't really per se have the output. We worked from home.
Absolutely.
We bought that first computer at Circuit City way back when.
Were they all PCs back at that point? I'm trying to
yes.
remember the timeline
yes.
of everything.
IBMs.
It was a Compaq. I remember that. I remember the first time the screen came on, I went, oh gosh, I've got to learn how to work this thing. It was pretty daunting. But anyway, and so he had a medical issue, which was a weird thing. It's called Guillain-Barré. Not many people have heard about it, but it's a neurological disorder.
Okay.
And so we didn't know what the heck was going on with him. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I have no job. We started this business. It's not doing well. I've got a young son. My husband's sick. Oh, great. This is not going to go well. And so we luckily had already talked about moving back to San Diego. Sold my house in one day, thank God, because I kept someone there for 8 hours. Literally, I made her dinner. I had her moved in. I'm pretty good at sales, but I was like, but it was one of those things where there were no other options, right? And so he got through the medical thing, but it really took about a year for him to really start feeling well. And so, here we are up in Las Vegas, and we're talking to, talking to customers, and he could only stay for a certain amount of time. Then he had to go and lay down and go to sleep because he was it really drains you, the Guillain-Barré. And luckily he wasn't paralyzed, but it can actually get that bad. So he had facial paralysis, which was kind of weird, and he couldn't eat very much, and it was this whole thing. Anyway, medical things are especially terrible, and you never know when they're going to happen.
And
so you just deal with it.
You start out and you're like, you don't have insurance, or the health benefits from the corporation I was working for, maybe they aren't there. Absolutely. So that's really scary.
It was really scary. So, but here's the thing. When you are starting something like that, you know that you have to be all in. There are really no other options. I didn't want to lose what savings we had, so, we had to see through. We had to see it through. And so just really moved back to San Diego, which was great because then we had our family here to help us. But it was definitely a difficult time, and really getting through day by day. There were a lot of no's before there was a yes. So, starting out, you're cold calling, you just want to get your foot in the door and get your, face in front of them. And then, we felt like, well, we could sell it once we get there, but how do we get there? And so
getting the meeting, getting in front of the decision maker. Absolutely.
What's cool is that our co-working spaces tie into this relative to the current, in that people come in and they don't feel alone. They're around others who are going through battles too.
Right.
And whether they're cognizant of it, like direct communication about what's happening in someone else's world, or just overhearing it.
Right.
It's a huge part of why I loved being in our spaces, was because you have that sense of not being alone in this battle. And I can't imagine the sense of loneliness in that situation, and you're like, so for you, it's that inner fire that's like, okay, no, we're going to do this, we're going to perform, we're going to make this happen. That is the biggest thing you can have to succeed, but having others who can support you along the way. And I think it's one of the reasons co-working spaces are so good for people in transition, whether it's military coming back or people getting out of school looking for work. It's this sense of community, and it's the reason people go to the coffee shops, because the sense of being belonging, right?
It's the together alone type thing. Like, you like working with people and in an environment, but maybe you still are working by yourself, but you like having the community. There is that kind of overarching sense of community that's not there when you're working anywhere else. Something about that really quick. I feel like co-working spaces also give you the freedom to not be as scared of failure, because it ups the ante when you feel like, oh my gosh, I have to sign a big long lease for a traditional place or whatever. With the flexible co-working model, really you're taking away some of the excuses that someone would have of why they couldn't start their own thing. Right? You're giving them so much value. You come to this space, and I'm walking around myself, before we started this, just looking at all of the value that you've built in here. You've built in the refreshments, you've built in the community workspaces that are the shared spaces. You're building in, the flex desks and all of the different things. So there's a lot of amenities that you're getting, and you're getting it at a fantastic price.
Yeah, I think for me the biggest difference is the community. All that other stuff people can buy. It's about where you are, right? And then who's around you. Shit, look at us, right? I met you in a coffee shop. I met you in a coffee shop. And here we are a year and a half, maybe later, in a podcast room in San Marcos. And that's about community. It's not because you like my kombucha, right? And
I like your kombucha.
And then the serendipity, right? And so whether you call it energy, religion, purposeful, we came together today because I wanted to hear your story. Just so happened Jonathan had asked to hear my story, and shit, I had no idea that you had this in your background. It's amazing.
It's crazy.
It's an amazing story.
Yeah.
So I almost interrupted. I want to hear the next part of the story.
No, not at all.
I do as well.
You know what? Well, let me just add one more thing. What I think about co-working spaces is it's like you have that part of being at home because it's not like an office space where you're spending a lot of money and all that on it. It's like the home space amplified, right? Because you've got the excitement and the energy around you with other people, but it's not the same as having the big output on the large office, and you have to go in every single day at a certain time. I think it just gives you the flexibility of, and not everyone has a home space that they can use, right? I mean, we were always lucky enough that we had a spare room, and that was the office. But not everyone has that. If you have an apartment or it's just not going to work.
Especially with kids.
Exactly.
I mean, that adds a completely different
Oh,
dynamic.
yeah.
I have 3 children.
Okay.
And like 6, 3, and now 11 months old, almost a year old, and baby girl. And it's, I mean, even with an extra room, you get the banging on the door, you get running out of the house so you can be on your phone and sound professional to a client. Like you do definitely have those struggles. So you're 100% spot on with that, giving that environment.
But the other thing that this also has is, when you need to meet someone and have that extra space that's, a professional meeting room, you've got that. You can do seminars. I mean, there are all these things that a co-working space, I think, really amplifies and really takes it up a notch, well, several notches probably from a home business, but you can still, do some of your work at home when you need, to be by yourself or whatever, and then you can come in and have that energy.
But
Plus,
here-
I think the energy also inspires, right?
Riddle me this.
Oh.
Where does a student, so I walk in today, I run into the head of the Chamber of Commerce for San Marcos. I run into 10, 20 to 25-year-olds who are part of a startup that actually started in the dorm above us. I run into the mayor. I run into a guy who runs his own podcast. If you're literally, who and how could you rub elbows with in a better way than a community or a space like this? That to me is the difference maker. And I'll keep saying it over and over again because at the end of the day, as much as our kombucha is amazing,
And your water.
Yeah, chilled water on tap,
Still bubbly.
bubbly.
It's like-
No.
I love that still. It's very, current and relevant.
Yeah, and then we've got the school meeting, right? We've got the Cal State is in our classroom with 20 people doing little work sessions. So I want to hear more about your story.
Well,
Continue.
So where do you want to know?
So we were a couple
We started
years
at the
in.
micros, challenging.
So,
When did you hire your first employee? There we go.
Oh, no. It was literally just us until about, let me think. I had joined the council. I think it was probably in 2009. I was doing almost everything for such a long time. And then finally it was like, well, when I joined the council, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to have to get rid of some of my responsibilities. But I still was doing quite a bit. So really it was when, probably about 2009, that we had a team that we put together in China. Because it becomes so important over there, too, because a lot of the things get changed during manufacturing. They end up going out wrong to your customer. You can't have that. But, and we're designing all of our own boxes and everything. And we wanted to make sure, which it's sold under Voz, which this is an interesting thing. So we were like, let's come up with a name for our stuff. What could it be? And then I was like, well, I think it should be When Value and Style Matter. And so we came up with VAS, V-A-S, Value and Style.
Okay.
Yeah, so anyway, it was kind of interesting, how these things you just spitball and try to figure out. That's
But
what I call it anyway.
you know what's cool too is that when you're doing it, it's not, internet and internet-based commerce, was still sort of just getting off the ground. It wasn't like today, where someone can sit in a room and just start an Amazon-based platform where they're shipping, delivering goods. You guys are doing it from your home, building this business with Excel spreadsheets on how to, fit it into a cargo shipping container.
There were just no tools for
well,
streamlining it.
less tools. And so when you said, when did you hire your first employee, I was thinking to myself, yeah, it was different then. People now, it might take them a lot longer, but to hear that it took you guys a while to hire someone actually is different for that time. You guys are just bootstrapping it completely.
Yeah, it was all about the money.
Shoot, I forget the other thing that I thought of as you were talking that was really impressive. But
Well,
I'll
what's
think of it.
interesting is then it really evolved into a lot of design, and then it was interesting because we never went to computer based. So this is how it worked. So my ex-husband would sit down with an artist, and he would draw out exactly what he's like, okay, this is the general, but let's start with that, and then they'd make changes. Then this was so scientific. We would spread them all out on the floor of our living room, and we would say, okay, of this one, which one do you think is the best? We would literally go through and choose in the living room floor, laid out like probably about 30 to 40 drawings, what we were going to present to Walmart and Best Buy and Costco.
Drawings that you guys had made?
Drawings that the artist had made, but things that
Cool.
X had, said, oh, what about this? And I go, you know what? What about like changing the hardware? I mean, we're talking hardware, glass color, wood colors, all of it. And we'd say, and so a lot of it was just us really just looking at it visually. What do we think?
That's so
And
cool.
so-
And probably thinking, what would you like?
Exactly.
Right?
Yes,
Like
exactly.
what would the consumer, what's the
Yes.
person in my position standing in front of, the aisle in Walmart, like what am I going to be attracted
Right.
What
to?
does that person who is in charge of Walmart think of that person who's in the aisle?
Right.
Yeah.
Because that's the next level,
That
right?
is the next
Because
level.
they're the ones that you're meeting with.
And if you upset Walmart, they're get rid of you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Offend their customer. And you have no
Exactly.
idea what that might be. Yeah.
Right. So it really, just starting your own business and, seeing it through, I think it really, a lot of it has to do with you just never know what's going to work, right? Because nothing is scientific. When I said it was scientific, I'm joking, of course. But really, you never know what's going to work. And so it's really having ideas and just trying things over and over and over. And I think a lot of people are afraid to do that, which is why I think most people don't even try, because they go, well, I'm too scared. If it fails, well, then it's the end of the world. It's really not the end of the world. You just have to, then again, like we talked about a little bit, before, is tweak it a little bit. Maybe you say, okay, that doesn't work, but what about if I take part of it and then tweak it just a little bit? And so, we've done that with the designs over the years, and that is how you stay relevant, how you continue to be successful. It's you don't give up, first of all, and politics translates very well from all of that. For
Yeah,
me,
to have that metal.
For me, I try not to be a politician. I try to be the kind of politician that I want, and that's someone that's just going to be a straight shooter, say it like it is, but also someone that cares. And a lot of politicians, I think, don't care. They forget why they're there, and the reason that you're there is to do a job, and your job is to serve a community. And if you're not there for the right reasons, I think people will figure it out, and they don't want you there.
That's so impactful. And that transparency, I think, has only been increased as now we have all sorts of apps on our phones, and we have Instagram and we have Facebook and all this different stuff. And so if you're living kind of a different life socially than you're trying to put out politically, absolutely, people will discover that probably at a much quicker pace than they would have previously. But I think that's so powerful that you are trying to be the type of politician that you want to be.
It's authentic.
It's authentic. It's very authentic. And I think it's refreshing, and I think that people don't expect that. And so the way that you're received probably has a lot to do with how people feel right away, because they know that you're speaking from your heart and you are being authentic and you are being genuine with how you're trying to make an impact in the local community.
It's amazing right now too, because so much of what's happening, perception is reality, right? Mm-hmm. And fake news, try fake TV shows, fake incidents. I mean, so it's very difficult, I think, to be authentic.
I feel like it's easy because it's who I am.
Yeah,
and I think
that's different.
It is, and I think people really appreciate that. And I think I know. Well, when I talk to people that have been around for a long time, they actually really appreciate that about me. Yeah. They know what they're getting. They don't have to figure out, am I being political? I mean, I always try to do the right thing. I've missed the mark. There have been a couple of, one land use decision that I know I just go, oh, I wish I would have not approved that. I won't mention what it is, but it is a retail place or a commercial space. Anyway, and it's like as long as you're striving to do the right thing and you want to serve the community and you want to, be authentic and be who you are, I don't want to change who I am. If I come to a point where I'm all political, I don't think I should do this job anymore. So I just want to do a job, do it well. I'm not, based on what I just told you about the business, I don't do things halfway. Mm-hmm. If I'm going to do something, I want to do it well. And so I try not to spread myself too thin. So I try to do a few things very well and intentionally put a lot of time and effort into it. And I think, now in a political atmosphere that is so highly charged, how can you do your job if you're really all into that? You've got to really continue to remember why you're there and the things that you need to do. Spending time with businesses, making sure that you're keeping the environment going within your city and, keeping the quality of life good. And I try to be, go, okay, well, we have a problem. So what's the solution to that problem? So I kind of geek out on traffic because that's one of the biggest things that we have. It hurts our businesses. It hurts our residents. Getting your kids to school on time, getting them to soccer and all of that, getting to their jobs on time, making sure that our businesses are well served by, people getting in their doors and all that. It incorporates a lot of different things. It's customer service through the city, making sure that you're getting your business license and opening in the right amount of time, but also making sure that we're doing everything we can for traffic. So I've learned a lot about traffic over the last couple of years. And, I have all these solutions and ideas and I just keep trying them. So I keep saying, what about this? What about that?
So a lot of where this comes from, to me, has to do with integrity, right? And so what does that word mean? But you're going to have lunch with someone who runs an elementary school, their family, and I don't know what the reasoning is, but to me, that includes a sense of integrity that comes through in businesses, developing businesses, staying the course, and then relates back to being authentic, and I would say, relative to the traffic comment, what these guys are building here and what we've bought into is definitely that we don't want to be driving. We want everyone to be walking and biking to work. And people want to do that, which I think you were talking about earlier with Jonathan, which is that even though technology is going like this with AI and everything, as long as we're still humans and not part robot, we still have that interest to not only be around people, but to spend our time not in cars, but with our kids, going and being able to have lunch with the mayor, and so the whole thing coming together in a development like this, in an area like this that is so destination centric, is a huge sell for me and why we're here in San Marcos.
Well, we have like 4,300 businesses in San Marcos, a lot. And we, a lot of our residents actually leave the city, about 78%, to work.
Wow.
So
Really?
and how do you
insane.
shift that back, because it's very difficult to do. And so people are still needing to use cars and get elsewhere. But when you can create areas like, I mentioned earlier, we've never had a downtown. This is it, but we're in the beginning stages of it, right? So it's going to take a while to shift, I think. But really making sure that we are, we have one business, just to kind of mention one business because I know this off the top of my head, Hunter Industries, which I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but they're manufacturers of sprinklers.
Okay.
Sprinklers, anything to do with outdoor irrigation. They have about, their annual sales are about $500 million. And so they're a pretty big company. They have about 800 employees in San Marcos, and they transport about $35 million a month on the 78 with trucks. So when you're talking about roads and, we have to have roads, we have to have transit, but it's really got to be a balanced transportation system, because we do want to, of course, make that shift. I personally have an electric car, so I'm trying to, be green and, make sure I'm reducing my greenhouse gases and all of that, because we have to protect our environment. But you've got to start out with something. Like, people go, oh, it's just too big. It's too big of a mountain to climb. No, you have to start somewhere. So really creating that downtown, starting the whole walkable thing. We're in the beginning of it, and I think people are going to shift, but I don't think it's going to happen overnight. And so we've got to make sure that we're serving everyone. How do we create more jobs in the city, right? How do we create more of an environment? And, at CSU San Marcos, I think they have about 18,000 students right now. And that is, in the region, they come from all over, mostly San Diego County, but some come outside Riverside and that sort of thing. But a lot of them are local. About 80% of them stay within the region. So it's also a housing issue, right? Because as you know, we have a huge shortage of housing. And if you look at San Marcos particularly, just because I know it off the top of my head, you have a lot of very low income. Then you have, and I'm talking about housing in general. And then you have mobile homes, and then it really jumps up to like $700,000-800,000. And so there's that whole missing in between. I call it a housing ladder. You're missing that whole in between area. Last night we approved about a 24, it's not that many, but 24 home small condominium project that is an infill project, but it'll start out around mid fives. And so at least you're chipping away a little bit by little bit, but it's keeping people here and you having the walkability so that could work. You have to provide the housing, and you have to make sure that you are, creating a downtown in these areas that will do it, but also having people that will invest into it too, because we don't build anything, it's all private development. So it's creating, I tell people, listen, we don't build anything, but we're creating an atmosphere where these things can happen, and eventually they will.
You can support it, you can plan for it, you can incentivize it, absolutely. And I think the folks behind this whole North City development, and I know, Jamie, you're involved in that at different points, but it just is so incredible how they're combining the living with the working here, with the co-working spaces, with the walkability that's so close to the different businesses that are around here, the bridge, like you said. You're really creating this hub where if I need to go to lunch, or if I need to have entertainment, or if I need to go to work or whatever, it's all very localized. And that is something that you're missing in a lot of communities that are kind of these suburban communities, like bedroom communities even, they're sometimes called, that I think start out because people don't want to live in the city, so they'll live in a place like San Marcos. I'm from the Temecula-Murrieta area. Again, it's the same thing. It's wild to me how many people live in the area but don't work there. Everyone commutes. Yeah. And that, to me, that's a totally different topic for a different time, but it's just, that's the one that's on.
No, but what do you do to make that better, quality of life? At a certain point, the value doesn't go up in communities like that. It's capped on value, because everyone has to drive 2 hours today, 3.5 hours in 10 years. The value goes down on that kind of a community. Sure, they've got a lot of tax income from in Murrieta, big box, or Temecula too, right? But if you're not doing stuff like this, where people can congregate and come together, and this was a risk for us, I thought. I had no idea really what the community here was, except what I learned at the coffee shop up the street where we met,
Right.
and notice all these different people hanging out, professors, students, future mayor, business people. And then I opened the coffee shop here, and then I learned more about the relationships within this community, which relate also a lot to religion and churches and family, and so then
It's the elements of the community really that are, yeah.
So the risk, I see the risk going down over time. I feel much more secure now than ever, because this community is sort of thriving and based on the same values that you guys are talking about. And I see, we see it already. We've been open for not even 30 days, and we've today got students, business people, nonprofits, all in the space of an hour and a half that I've seen in here. So it's coming alive, and so for me, it is a case in point, a proof of this community doing and being bigger than, unfortunately, no offense to anyone from Temecula or Murrieta, or anyone that listens to this, but you have to have that community center in order for people to really want to be there. It's not just about affordability, because that has a cost. Absolutely. 3 hours in the car each way to your job has a cost. Has a cost on your kids, has a cost on your mental, state.
Totally.
Capability to be physically it's all like.
Well, and it's a challenge that we face, because the business that we run is an event staffing company, and so my wife and I started in college, and we've owned it for about 7 years now, and that's a whole nother topic. We're very, very focused on elevating people's experiences through service, and our entire culture is focused around serving people. That's just written into the bones of what our company is about. And so we try to ask ourselves consistently, how are we serving people? And our people could be our vendors, our people could be our clients, our people could be our employees. So as long as we're keeping that mindset, and then more specifically in the event space, that's constantly evolving, moving, changing, it's very important to be flexible. So bringing that elevated service in an environment that is oftentimes served by a very transient community is something that is extremely important to us. And being in the Temecula area allows us to serve LA, Orange County, Palm Springs, and then down in the San Diego area. So we're kind of in the middle of this triangle, but the driving, if I had to drive to every single one of the locations, which I don't, but if that was the nature of the job, absolutely. We have friends that drive over the Ortega. They live there, they drive over the Ortega, and it's an hour and a half, and that really, that's 3 hours commuting a day on top of your work day.
Yeah. On top of family, schools,
and it's family and it's work that get the bad end of that, because you're exhausted when you get home and you don't have no time to hang out with your significant other or your kids or whatever. So I really do like that point. I did want to ask something to both of you, because I think that it's relevant to what both of you have said and in both of your industries. How do you stay in line with your higher purpose as far as what you want to accomplish? Whether it's in a political role or whether as a business owner, what you're trying to make, the impact that you're trying to make in the community. How do you stay in line with your higher purpose and kind of that branding and that culture that you have in your head, kind of the clouds, if you will? And then execution-wise, they'll have to deal with all the operations. Because oftentimes, for me, I've personally struggled with you kind of have these ideals of how you want things to go and kind of the purity of that. But then practically, when you're dealing with people, you're dealing with, construction stuff that may not be working out, or permits that are, or whatever the scenario is, whatever the minutia is, it can really throw you off and kind of uncenter you. So how do you stay centered? How do you stay focused on that? And what do you maybe do to kind of clear your head so that you can stay aligned and stay pushing towards that?
Oh, you've got to find balance. And for me, I'm a Christian, so I do a lot of praying, but I also need to get physical activity. So I kickbox and I also practice yoga, which I've been trying to get Jamie to do. He hasn't done it yet.
I'm interested for sure.
Yeah,
the concept is very
you've got to figure out how to take time for yourself, first of all, to keep grounded, because there are so many outside influences that really can deter you from what you really want to do and keeping on track. And, especially in politics, it's very ugly at times. And, we have a lot locally that just happens. I'm on several different committees. So I spend a lot of time in San Diego too. And, for me, I also like to meet with constituents on a pretty regular basis, people that I've never met before, because that keeps me really remembering why I'm here. And not that I forget, but it just, reminds me of all the things, the people that I'm serving, all the, the people that I wouldn't normally meet with and talk to on a regular. Yeah, exactly. And, when I have people that, and I do a lot of social media, which I did some before, but I'm on LinkedIn now, which I never was. I've had people from other cities tell me, gosh, I wish you were my mayor because you do so much for businesses and you really, talk about all the things that are going on in your community, which is really exciting. And so I think, for me and my job, I think it's important to remember why I'm here. I think it's remember to take time for myself. Otherwise, I can't be replenished, and it can be overwhelming at times because we do have a lot going on. And, a lot of things go wrong. You never are going to be able to control everything around you. And so kind of remembering that and saying, okay, I got to let a lot go in my business. I have to let a lot go. And, you're not going to make everyone happy. That's absolutely the truth. And even, I'm sure you experience that too, where you have someone that's unhappy and you're trying to make them happy, but you sometimes have to let things go. And, I had one of my colleagues yesterday say, Rebecca, you can't fix everything. And I said, I know. I'm trying to keep that in perspective, but it's also, making sure that you're looking at the big picture and knowing how all the pieces fit together and knowing that, not everything's going to fit perfectly. And sometimes you have to be patient. One thing I guess I would like to say about business in general, kind of going back to that, is you've got to be patient and you have to know when to fight battles and when you need to let things go, because you're not going to do everything perfectly. And to get where you want to be, there are going to be some things that are going to slip and they're not going to be exactly the way you want them to be. But if you're patient and you're looking at the end game, it doesn't really matter always how you get it. Doesn't always matter every single piece if it fits perfectly, because you're still going to probably get there as long as you're tenacious and you're looking at the big, the end game.
And the balance piece for me is, I have a really good business partner who is very analytical. I'm very much in the clouds. I'm lucky enough that I grew up watching and being with my grandfather who built communities, and so being able to be around him and learn lessons with him, and those are integrity lessons that you get from your family perhaps, that also helps with this balance, so I'm in the clouds and I've got a sense of integrity that I live to, and then I've got this partner who is very analytical and from a business perspective keeps us in check. So my crazy ideas and his pragmatic approach are really helpful for our business.
That's powerful.
Yeah, good team is really important.
And he's a little bit of the Wizard of Oz, he's like, well, I shouldn't put it, that's a lot of clout to him. No, but he's behind the curtain, and I like it because I'm the face and he's in the spreadsheets. I think it's a good place for both of us. So, but the balance part of it, and then exercise, very important, and then the daily battles we all have, right? We're human, we have ups and downs and trends. 3 months where we're feeling hammered, but yesterday even, because I live next to where I work, I was able to walk down to the beach and see my son at his surf camp. So here I am in the middle of this terrible paperwork, and I pried myself away from that as crazy as it sounds, right? Because you get so
tunnel vision, absolutely.
Focused on your own BS. The relief I needed was to go down to the beach, take my shoes off, and see the joy of my kid coming in on a surfboard, right? So that was 20 minutes that was very important for me to have. And so recognizing that you need it, following through with it, whether it's yoga, exercise, your kids, the balance part of it is critical. Yeah.
That's a good point, because my kids are now 19 and 23, but when they were little, you have to spend that time because, Jamie?
Yeah.
Everyone says it, but I know for sure firsthand that it's real. You've got to take that time watching your kids and spending time with them, because it does go so fast, so fast. You know, my son just graduated from the fire academy about a month ago, maybe a little over a month ago. My daughter just finished her first year at USD for business. Like, those times you're not going to get back. So you need to do that, because, it's not going to come back.
It's going every second.
Enjoy it. Enjoy every moment, because before you know it, you'll be where I am.
Yeah.
You'll be older,
leading the people,
seasoned. You could be. You could be. I'm actually the first woman mayor in San Marcos, believe it or not.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, girl.
Right?
Congratulations.
It's pretty
That's
exciting.
incredible.
I know. I think I was only the third woman ever elected to the San Marcos City Council, but now I have 2 more. So
that's so
and
cool.
and then we had one in between who
That's awesome.
decided to move on. Yeah, so it's pretty exciting to have that, be the first anything, but also showing other, like, young girls. So I'm part of the Boys and Girls Club. I'm an advisory board member.
Okay.
And so I started a girls mentoring group this year. And, it's intentionally, the Boys and Girls Club is in one of our lower socioeconomic areas. Those young girls, they come up and they're like, Mayor Jones, I go, you can call me Miss Rebecca. It's okay. And so they're like, well, do you think I could be a mayor? And I said, well, of course you can. I didn't think I would ever end up here, but, of course you can. You just have to be very driven. You need to get educated. You need to follow through on things and work hard. And, everyone can do something. And I think that's part of business. I think once people don't believe that they can do something kind of breaks in your heart, and then you can't. It's it's not like you don't want to, you just honestly can't. So I think the more that, as business leaders or leaders in the community, the more we can inspire our young people, which is one of the reasons that I'm part of the Boys and Girls Club. I just love what they do. Last year I was honored as the honorary chair of the year, which was a huge honor. But, being able to touch the young people and explain to them that, you can do anything that you set your mind to. You just need to follow through on it, and you need to believe in yourself. I think the more that we can inspire young people, I think that it really does help a community, which is why I do it. I think it's good for the community, and I no one ever did that for me. I didn't think I could do very much, honestly. So now I look and I go, wow, I've exceeded my expectations. That's great. I think that it's our job to do that as adults. So
I love that.
That is awesome.
Well, thank you so much for being on this podcast. I mean, it's been such a treat to talk to you and hear your story. Just kind of a sidebar really quick about your role and being the first woman mayor, and now really having this impact. I come from a family of very strong women. I have 3 younger sisters, my aunts, and pretty much everyone in my mom's family as well. A lot of strong women. And my aunt up north in the Sonoma area, she was on the school board and was principal for a while in a number of different areas. And really just, I've been able to see firsthand the impact that strong female leadership can have, and the importance of that in a community. And so it's exciting to hear when someone has that approach and is also willing to really get things done. And you're very serious, and I can tell you're very intentional about getting stuff done. You do have that long range vision, but at the same time you're not disappointed just because, you're going one step at a time. You realize that you have to do that. And whether it's in business or it's in politics or whatever, you kind of have to do things one brick at a time. I find in my experience that the people who are failing or giving up are the people who are taking one step and then comparing their one step to where someone else is 30 or 40 steps down. Mm-hmm. And they're like, I'm not anywhere near there. I can't possibly get there. My one step compared to their 40 steps, I've lost already. And you're right about the mindset and about the assumptions that we make about ourselves. They can be extremely limiting. And so encouraging those around us is super important. But thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to talking to you, Jamie, more also about Union, and Rebecca, thank you as well.
That was great.
So just so everyone, whether you're on the podcast listening right now or you're watching on YouTube.
This was live?
No, this wasn't live. Well, it'll be out on.
Thank the Lord. I got to do some makeup changes.
Hey, I didn't even get to powder myself, so I just walked in after spilling coffee all over myself and quick change.
Where can people find you if they're wanting to connect? You mentioned LinkedIn. Are you on Instagram, Facebook? Where can people find you and connect to you?
UnionCowork.com. Social media, Instagram, Union Cowork.
Perfect.
Facebook, I don't know.
Sweet. Fair enough.
Facebook, Rebecca Jones. Facebook, Mayor Rebecca Jones. Let's see, Instagram, Rebecca Jones. And, LinkedIn, Rebecca Jones.
There's a theme here.
I am literally Rebecca Jones on everything. And then also the city website, which is san-marcos.net. Go on elected or government, and there I am, the mayor. So, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Rebecca, Jamie, thanks so much.
Nice
Nice meeting you as well.
Yes.
All right. Take care. Thanks, everyone.